Hi, I'm Ribbons the Clown, and today you're watching a broadcast from Ribbons, believe it or not. Now I'm going to tell the greatest love story ever told. It's a love story about a father and how he loved his children so much that he was willing to allow his firstborn son to die so that all of his children would be reunited with him. And this is that story. While I'm telling you this story, I'm going to make a balloon Easter basket. And we're going to start off with one balloon. We're going to put 4 ribs equally spaced apart, and then we're going to weave the balloon around each of those ribs. Now this love story starts off with a promise. It's not an everyday promise, but it's the strongest promise that could ever be made. And that's called a blood covenant promise. And if you broke this promise, it will be by penalty of death. Your death. A blood covenant was between 2 people or 2 groups of people. And the reason for blood covenant was because they were going to exchange the weaknesses of one group for the strengths of the other group. And there we have our 4 ribs, and now we're going to weave around it. People or 2 groups of people made this covenant. They would exchange strengths and weaknesses. But they also would exchange coats, which was a symbol of their authority, saying all I have that's mine is now yours, and all you have is mine. They would also exchange weapons, which was saying your enemies are now my enemies, my strength is now your strength. They would also exchange names. They would tie their hands, they would cut their wrists or their arms and tie their arms together and intermingle their blood, saying that we're now one name and we're going to be loyal to each other, and we're doing this to show that we're one, and whoever sees the scar will know that they're in covenant with somebody. And then what they did is they sacrificed an animal and walked through its blood, stood in the middle of the blood and pronounced curses on each other and blessings. Now if they broke this covenant, it was the penalty was death. But also if they broke it, there were all kinds of curses that would come on them. And the last thing that they did was they ate a covenant meal together. They sat down and they drank wine and bread. The wine was a symbol of their body. The wine was a symbol of their blood, and the bread was a symbol of their body, and their willingness to lay down their lives for each other. Now what we're doing here with the balloons is we're trying to get each one of these that come across of the ribs, each one of these that we're weaving, we're trying to get it same distance apart, a little bit further apart than the one lower than it. And we're bringing it here, and we're twisting it, and we're going on to the next rib. Get back to the story. Let me show you what I mean by blood covenant, an example that actually happened. Now remember, this is a love story about a father for his kids and how he was willing to sacrifice his firstborn son so that all of his children could be reunited with him. Now this story begins a long time ago with a man named Abraham and his family. Abraham had a covenant like this, and his covenant partner was, well, it was God. Abraham and God made a covenant. Now Abraham's part of this blood covenant was to keep certain rules. They were called Leviticus rules, or in the book of Leviticus were those rules. And remember, now if any of those rules were broken, the penalty was death on either side. And there were also promises made, and if any of those promises were broken, there was death. Now, one of the rules of a blood covenant, and of this blood covenant, is that whatever your partner does, you have to be willing to do that also. So, God asked Abraham to do a strange thing. He asked him to sacrifice his son as the sacrificial lamb. So Abraham was willing to do this. So because he was willing to sacrifice his son, it opened the door for God to sacrifice his firstborn son also. Now when you get to the top of the balloon and you've woven them up all the way, you're going to leave about this much for the top part of the basket. You want to measure them so they're all pretty much even. This one, I'm holding it sideways. These are all pretty even. Then you're going to tie them all together. So it's going to look like this. Abraham got old and died, but the covenant still went on and passed on to his children. One day, Abraham's great-great-grandchildren were living in Egypt, and they were under the Pharaoh in slavery. And they wanted to go sacrifice to God, but the Pharaoh wouldn't let them go. So these plagues or curses came on the land. And the last curse to come on the land was the curse or plague that the firstborn person and animal in every household on the land was going to die at midnight. But God had a covenant, a blood covenant with the Israelites, which are the name for Abraham's great-great-grandchildren. So he protected them. He told them, take a sacrificial lamb, kill it, eat it, and then take the blood from the lamb and smear it over the doorpost. And when the death angel came over that house to kill the firstborn, the death angel saw the blood sign of the covenant, the blood of the covenant over that house, and knew he could not enter or hurt anybody in that house. And that's called Passover, because the blood smeared on the doorpost caused the death angel to pass over that house. And that's what that holiday is, or religious holiday is, that's called Passover.